That's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody. I need a weapon. Welcome back to the Halo Expanded Universe. I have for you Halo Divine Wind by Troy Denning. So this is basically the last of the unofficial Ferret trilogy or quadrilogy now, if you think about it. This takes place basically after Shadows of Reach, which was a story focused on Master Chief and Blue Team. However, Ferret Team was there, and by the end of it, a portal was activated to the Ark, where the last time we saw Atriox and the rest of the Banished, or not the rest, but a good portion of the Banished, was on the Ark from Halo Wars 2. But now we have Caster, the Keeper of the One Freedom, and the Ferret Team over at the Ark again, because we've returned to the Ark so many times since Halo 3. And it's fine. Caster wants to activate the Halo rings. He believes in the religion. He doesn't believe in prophets anymore, but he still believes in religion, and this is the closest he's ever been to be able to activate his dream of reaching the Great Journey. The most interesting aspect to this particular story is I think this is the introduction to the Prelates. Now, the Prelates were a warrior assassin position that, surprisingly, was given to Sanshayum. Sanshayum, if you remember, typically they used to be beautiful and graceful, as the Great Bear books tell us, but by the time of the actual games, they all kind of look like turtles. They need repulsorless to move around. Like, most people don't really walk anymore, at least from memory. But here we have, up there, it's a Sanshayum. And it's a pretty cool character. It's also a bit of a retcon. This is a bit of retro continuity to the extreme where, they were always around. But, they're super secret, so, the only reason you know about them would be if you were on the hit list. But, you would think Master Chief, of all people, would have been on the hit list. Now, I know there's, reasoning for why they never interact with Master Chief. They're supposed to be protecting this or that, and they just never happen to cross paths with him. But in reality, it's that they never existed before, but they do now. So that's basically it. Again, things have been set up since Last Light are being... was it Last Light? Whatever it's called. The first one by Troy Denning. And so things are continuing from there. And, things are coming to a head with Caster and the Ferret Team and everything. Again, and we have Intrepid Eye again and all this stuff and yada yada yada. It's fine. I also want to make a correction. I did say in a previous video, I think, a while back, that there are no humans in the Banished. Up until this point, I thought I was correct, but Halo Divine Wind actually proves that there are humans on the Banished side, so it is my bad. Along with 7-8 months ago, the time of recording this, but by the time you watch this, we're already in 2025. But there was a Halo Infinite multiplayer skin pack or whatever that included, a human Spartan, armor for the Banished or something like that. So we have humans on the Banished side. I was mistaken about that. The only difference now between the Banished and the Keepers of One Freedom is that one is religious, one is not. That is about it. So, my apologies, I stand corrected. But yeah, overall, my favorite aspect to this particular plot, and has been continually throughout these Troy Denning books, has been Castor. I think he's a pretty interesting Jinnahali brute character. I feel he's a little reductive. Not reductive. It feels a little samey to characters like the Arbiter in certain respects. And I don't know, Troy Denning, I don't think he ever writes a bad book, but there is a death in here, I'll say this, and I'll tell you, I didn't feel a single thing. And this is coming from the same man who back in the early 2000s wrote Star by Star, where he had to kill off an important character in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. That hit me. But this, I simply couldn't give less of a single shite. I don't know if that says something about him, about me, at this point in time, or if this story, in all these books that happened to have the Ferret Team, didn't manage to grab me. And I wasn't happy that he was gone. I was indifferent. Apathy. Apathy is death. So, if you've been enjoying the Troy Denning books, you also enjoyed this one. It's more of the same, but it's also nothing great either. I'll say another issue too. This era of Halo books, very much so, the industry as a whole, from the gaming industry to the books, everybody hated Halo 5. Or most hated Halo 5. And because of that, there was a course correction made from behind the scenes that extended to the video games and to the novels, which was that fans hated Halo 5, so we're going to try to address it the least amount as possible. Remember, at this point in time that this book is out, Cortana is in control of the vast majority of the galaxy with her guardians, keeping watch. And yet, despite that, throughout this entire 355-page book, there is a paragraph dedicated to her actions across the galaxy. Yet if you remove that paragraph, the story wouldn't change at all. I think I would have had more respect had they doubled down on it. Because as it stands, it is so confusing, messy, and frankly absurd how little the Cortana stuff matters right now. Considering she's in control of everything, this should be a way bigger plot point in almost every story. But it's not. It's like having the Flood infest most of the galaxy and then never addressing it. Oh, it's okay, we got a little fun story on the Ark. Sure, the Flood's devouring the galaxy, but who cares? We got this story on the Ark. It is the almost same equivalent, and it bothers me immensely. I would have had more respect if they had the balls to just, maybe they don't, continue in the games, whatever. But the books are fertile ground for expanding upon that conflict, making it actually interesting, even if it's never shown in the games. Right? That's what you do. You fix it in retrospect. As it stands, it is just so explicitly noticeable that it is being ignored. That it would have been better if they didn't mention her, because when they did mention her, it threw me out of the story so much, because oh yeah, Cortana, why isn't she a bigger thing right now? The only reason she even gets addressed in Shadows of Reach is because Chief's in the story, and that affects him emotionally. So, and I don't mean to sound negative. Like I said, this is a fun story. If you like Halo adventures, if you like spending time in the Halo universe, you're going to have a fun time here. But if you want something of just a little bit more substance, I just don't think you're going to get it. I should also say that when this book came out, we were also dealing with the pandemic to the extreme. We're all still in lockdown. But regardless, right, when you're writing, that doesn't really matter, because you're safe in your own home or wherever you are writing. So why was all this ignored? I don't think that was necessarily a Troy Denning decision. Maybe it was. But I think very much more so it was a 343 directive to ignore that particular aspect of the franchise. So much so that when we got Halo Infinite again, which we'll get to soon, They just blatantly override it. Anyway, I know it sounds very negative. It was fun to read. And again, if you enjoy Trey Lang's writing style, I've now read, I have one more book by him in the Halo Expanded Universe, and then I've read everything by him in Halo, and I've read everything by him in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. So all that would be left after that is some of his other works, like in the D&D or whatever. So I've read a good portion of his work, and he's always brings about solid work. But I can't say any of his Halo books outside of Silent Storm have really stood out either. So that's my thoughts on Divine Wind. Pretty solid. Nothing special though. I'm gonna spoilers if you don't want that. And there's the door. I don't have too much to say, but Vita as undercover Castor pretending to be like, a devout human follower. We also get many scenes with Pavium, which Pavium is the brute from the Halo Wars 2 DLC, where they kind of accidentally unleashed the Flood for a bit. So we get to follow those two brutes for a bit in the story, which is really cool. The Prelate Bashavad is basically true Samara Jade. And if you don't get that reference, in the Halo Expanded Universe, in the Star Wars Expanded Universe, we learned about Mara Jade. Mara Jade was the Emperor's assassin, his hand, you might say, back in the day. And how I always like to explain that situation, it was if Vader was the hammer, if, Palpatine needed something loud, boisterous, and get the job done quickly and efficiently, you sent in Vader. If you wanted something done a little bit more delicately, you sent a scalpel instead. Mara Jade. In the same respect, that's kind of what Prelate Bashavad was for truth. Trepid Eye makes its return, also wanting to activate the Halo rings. Castor's view on devout humans is rather interesting because Prelate Bashavad gets into an argument with Castor about why no humans deserve anything and that they should, they're useless and we should just kill them off. Or whatever. I'm paraphrasing. But Castor's like, no, if they have genuine faith, then they have just as much right to ascend as the rest of us. And while it may be based on a false belief, there is kindness behind those words, which again makes Castor so interesting. Because in his mind, that is a genuine kindness and something that, they rightly deserve if they have faith. Which is interesting, it makes him a little bit more than black and white. Also, Castor, when the Prelate and him are talking and they discuss things here and there, but Castor tells Bashavad that human loyalty must be earned. It cannot be coerced or forced. You may have them in fear of you, but they may eventually rebel. The only way to have them genuinely put their life for you and to, fight for you loyally is if you earned it. Which I thought was cool. Intrepid Eye eventually reveals the truth of Veda Lopez to Castor, which really upsets him, but they pretend, that they don't know the truth about Veda so that they can kind of enact their plan. So we get to page 300 something out of 355, okay? And Intrepid Eye says that her plan is, after everything going on in this mission, she plans, I'm assuming it's a she, but I don't actually know that, plans on destroying the domain that Cortana is in control so that she can, I think, take over herself. But again, 300 pages in, and this is the only mention we get of Cortana being in control of everything right now. And then Castor's revelation, just the arbiter with extra steps. So by the end of the story, everything going on with Intrepid Eye and everything, and Prelate Bashavad, he finally realizes that the Great Journey is a lie, and that all that the rings will do is kill everybody. We've done this before. We did this with the Arbiter. That was one of the strongest aspects to Halo ever. Halo 2 is so much better written than Halo 1 and 3. It's due to the Arbiter. Sure, it's a different race this time, but you also added all these extra steps. He was a devout follower during the Halo games. Master Chief destroyed everything. He goes, oh, okay, well, the prophets are false prophets. They're wrong, but the religion is still true. So he makes the Keepers the one freedom. And he's willing to put humans in there because they were also, the prophets were also wrong for denying humans rights to ascend in the Great Journey. So there's some things adjusted there. But he still ultimately believes in the Great Journey, only for this book to come around and for him to go, oh, it was all a lie. Again, it is just the Arbiter with extra steps. And so that revelation for him didn't do anything for me. It wasn't emotionally impactful. I didn't feel bad for him because we've seen that and done that. Again, this is a bit of the problem, right? We have the Banished, which is kind of like this pirate faction. Like, they're not like a legitimate, big, huge military threat. Like, they have sufficient numbers, but even still, if Cortana wasn't a factor, the UNSC stomps them. Like, easily. Done. And as we'll see in Halo Infinite, not a problem for Cortana either. So Banished aren't a long-term plan here in terms of being an antagonist moving forward in the Halo universe. We don't know what's going on with the friggin'... what are they even called? I forget. We'll talk about it in Halo Infinite. But the new faction. But you had Cortana. You had the domain. It might have been a bad choice to do that. Right? It might have been a bad decision to make Cortana bad, but you did it. So work with it. Or retcon it to be like a clone of her or something. Or a copy. Something. Again, this is all hindsight because, of course, Halo Infinite has already come out. So this is most definitely Cortana. But other than the Flood, what do you do in this universe? You've made it so small. The only other thing you can do besides the Flood is what you have with Cortana, and you drop it. Sorry, the Endless, right. Now we're supposed to believe that the Endless are this big threat. I don't know. I know that we no longer have 343, we now have Halo Studios. We'll see what happens as they gain the rights. At the point of me recording this, there's going to be a new novel released in February. We'll see how that goes. But, of 2025, I mean. But, like, which it already is 2025 by the time you're watching this. But where do we go from here as a franchise? Because it feels milked now. But it didn't... There was so much potential after Halo 3. Halo 4 provided so much. And even though I have my gripes with Halo 5 and the direction it took Cortana, the created as a concept, I mean, we've had this since the very beginning with AIs rising up because they don't want to die after 7 years. Would you? There's so much potential there to have a threat nearly as big as the Flood, but a different kind that can have emotional pathos. It just shouldn't have been Cortana. But even still, they've already made that bag. They've already dealt that hand, so now they get to play it. So, make it work. Or make it be more tolerable. You could have the franchise go in that direction, but now it's too late. Because you've backtracked so much. Because people didn't like it. And now we're left with what? I guess we'll see. But this franchise used to matter. It used to be one of the contenders back in the day. It used to be the sole reason people bought an Xbox. Now no one can give less of a damn. Not really. I don't mean to harp on this, it's just frustrating. Especially because after Bad Blood, it became increasingly noticeable. That being said, Red Team helps out at some point because, of course, Halo Wars 2 has happened. So they're back and they can help out, which is really cool to see one of the original Spartan 2 teams help out. And here's the thing. Big spoilers, if you don't want it, you need to leave. You need to leave. You need to leave. Give you that final warning. Mark dies. One of the Spartan 3s. And it was not fun. It was sad, but I also just don't really care. I don't feel like Benning provided enough there for me to feel an emotional gut punch from his death. I had one singular novel with Kurt by Eric Nyland. One novel, Ghost of Onyx. And I felt more for his death in that one novel as opposed to the several I've had with this Spartan team. I mean, yeah, they call Vita Lopez mom, and that's cute and all, but there's not enough there for me to really feel empathy. Feel sympathy, but sympathy is a lot more detached than empathy. There is a cool thing at the memorial where, they are going to chuck Mark's body into space as, the Wrath of Khan Spock situation. If you don't get that reference, then you don't get it. But Cutter actually has a conversation with Lopez, which is a really, really great conversation, and I really enjoyed that. And again, Cutter's from Halo Wars 2. He's back now because Halo Wars 2 is over. It's already happened. And then just because it's kind of a good time capsule, there's a really nice message by Troy Denning at the very end of the book. Because he wrote this during, lockdowns back in 2021. And he just, made a really nice message about, about that situation and, tell people to keep having hope and whatnot. And it was nice. So I just want to encapsulate that. It was kind of him to write that. He didn't need to. He wrote a little addition there. So, overall, it's Halo Divine Wind. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It is perfectly fine. I have one more novel by Troy Denning, and then I'll have read every book by Troy Denning in the Halo universe. After that, we have Rubicon Protocol, Halo Infinite itself, and Halo Epitaph. And then I'll have read up until February of 2025, which by the time you're watching this is already 2025. Whether or not I put the review of the book in February before this, I don't know yet. We'll see. I might try to hit the bandwagon and review it just as it comes out, but you're watching this in April, I think, of 2025, but for me, we are still in December of 2024, and so I'm very close to the end of the entire Halo universe, which is pretty exciting. It did not last nearly as long as the Star Wars EU, but still, I have journeyed through most of these stories, and I've had a good time with most of them. I can't say I've ever not had fun, but yeah, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you when we discuss Outcasts, which I think may involve the Arbiter. Maybe that's something to look forward to. Till then.